June is currently on the True TV series Conspiracy Theory with Jesse Ventura. She's also a well-known political expert, presenter and producer in the UK. She's even been awarded an MBE. So when I was asked if I'd be interested in talking to her about what she's been doing and the conspiracy theories she's been researching, of course I was very pleased to do so. And what follows is a short interview that's not particularly high quality. She was calling from a Skype line that had quite a lot of hits on it, but I found it highly entertaining. I hope you will too. I started Disinformation in 1997 with a partner, and we were always interested in conspiracies and alternative news and all that kind of stuff. And you have got a long and varied background, but what you've been up to most recently is working with Jesse Ventura on the Conspiracy Theory show. Now, how did you get into that?
It kind of sort of happened naturally, really. They were looking for somebody that could produce and present, and somebody that could do harder hitting stuff, but also the kind of fluffier stuff, because our tone does, it is quite hammy as well. And they wanted a girl, and they weren't able to. They were having trouble finding one, and my agent kind of was like, actually, I've got the perfect person for you. And I went to meet them and got on like a house on fire with them, and they offered me the job more or less on the spot, and that was that, really.
Oh, fantastic. Well, about a decade ago, believe it or not, we produced a series for Channel 4 in England called Disinfo Nation, and we did quite a few. Yeah, we did.
I heard of that.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah, it did pretty well actually. It aired for 2 seasons, and then we sold it to Sci-Fi Channel here, and they freaked out at the last minute and decided not to air it. But anyway, we had a lot of fun, and we investigated some conspiracies, and we met some people who weren't that easy to decide. It wasn't that easy to decide whether or not you should take them at face value. Now, what have you found when you've been meeting some of the people that you've interviewed for the shows?
I think we found a mixture of both, actually. You're very right. I mean, what we do is we have a lot of people who have, worked for institutions and so on. Or, with the 9/11 episode, we interviewed the fireman, one of the firemen who was like the last person off the site. We interviewed the janitor, who was the last person out of the building, an FBI agent. But then we also interviewed, people who were local to the community and had their sort of ideas about it all. And I think because of the tone of the show, what we do with it is we interview people who have proper authority on whatever the issue is. But we do also interview some people that, watching it, someone might say, well, what proof do they have? But I think it makes for an entertaining program, because essentially this is entertainment. But we do make sure that we check the facts in terms of where the authoritative figures are concerned, without doubt.
Right. Now, do you ever find yourself sitting in a room with an interviewee and wondering what on earth you were doing with that person and how your life got you this far?
No, I don't quite think that, but I do think, are you kidding me?
Okay.
Like, sometimes, I'm like, some of the stuff, I'm like, now, come on, this is a bit far-fetched. And, there's a lot of these people who actually believe this stuff.
Right.
So, there's a few times where I was like, oh, come on, guys, you've got to be kidding me. But no, I don't think, how did my life get here? Because it's so much fun. Like, I've seen the whole of America. You name it, I've been there.
Right. Now, I agree with you that really the show is entertainment, and you've each got your role. Alex, I guess, is the resident skeptic. Now, what's your role? What if you've got your little area carved out as what you're supposed to do on the show? What is that?
My role, I would say, is probably being myself, in the sense that I came to this show with a completely open mind. I wasn't a skeptic like Alex, but I wasn't a believer like, let's say, Braverman. Braverman believes all of these things. I definitely don't. So for me, I'm sort of, I suppose, the level-headed one of the lot. And I kind of make a decision after we've actually investigated whatever conspiracy it is. So yeah, I think my role is actually to sort of be myself, which is quite cool.
Right. You know, I've definitely enjoyed it, and of course I like hearing the English accent on the show because that appeals to the part of me that wants to eat fish and chips occasionally, you know.
Oh, good.
So tell me, out of all of the stories that you've researched on the show so far, which is the one that really has opened your eyes the most as to there being something pretty scary going on?
HARP for me. We spoke to both the Air Force and the Navy, and they wouldn't speak to us. But I interviewed the son of the designer, a guy called Daniel Eastman, and he kind of confirmed that machine could do the things that people were sort of speculating that it can do, the things that the powers that be deny. It can affect weather. It can. It can.
No, I mean, it's got a lot of people. It's got a lot of people scared. In fact, somebody posted a story on our website at disinfo.com yesterday, a story saying that HARP had deleted all of its records for the day before the Haiti earthquake, with the implication, of course, being that maybe HARP had something to do with it, which sounds far-fetched. But having learned what you learned, could you potentially believe that?
No, I don't believe that they would be using that machine in Haiti, purely because it just would cost too much. Like the electricity bill on it alone would be horrendous. But what I do believe is, I don't necessarily believe that they've been using it on that kind of scale, but I believe that they've been, maybe doing tests with it, like small local tests. So therefore, they know it can do those things. But I don't believe they've used it. No, not at all.
But there could perhaps be unintended consequences, right? They could try something and it doesn't quite work out the way they plan.
No, but for it to have the kind of, catastrophic effects we've seen in Haiti, you wouldn't be able to do that just sort of as a fluke.
Right.
You would have to design that sort of setup, just the electricity alone that it would take.
Understood.
To create something like that.
Understood.
But what I find scary about HARP is, the Russians and the Chinese have similar capabilities. That information is out there on the internet, so anyone could go and build their own mini HARP if you have the sort of technical know-how. And we know that machine can do those things. So for me, that is what I find pretty scary. But I don't believe no way.
Right. Well, I'm glad you don't believe that, because it's not something I want to believe either. So let me ask you about something that I spent a lot of time researching over the last couple of years, which is the 2012 issues that I know you got into, and we made a film called 2012 Science or Superstition, where we interviewed some of the same people that you did, like Larry Joseph.
Yeah.
Now, did Larry convince you? Do you think that there is something pretty scary likely to happen around that time?
No, not at all. What I think, and it's funny, but they didn't show this so much in our episode, but I interviewed, funnily enough, you're not going to believe this, David Icke about this subject.
Okay.
And David Icke, who, as we know, is the biggest conspiracy theorist of them all, actually gave an interesting take on it. And, I do other programs where I interview a lot of sort of spiritual type people. And they all see 2012 much more as a sort of a spiritual shift, a paradigm shift in terms of the way people think and business as usual changing. And that's what I think 2012 is going to be. I think 2012 is actually a good thing. I don't think it's a bad thing. When you look at all the stuff that Greg Braden writes about, and when, and in all his sort of mathematics and fractal time and stuff like that, I think we can make 2012 a good thing, in the sense that if you look at what's going on in the financial institutions, if you look at the fact that a Barack Obama was elected, I think the world is shifting in that the kind of old way of doing things, where, it's only a small privileged few that benefit from the system, as it were. I think that's going to change. I think 2012 could be actually a good thing.
Okay, well, I tend to agree with you, and that's more or less where our film came out. But when I watched the episode that you made for True TV, it seemed as though Jesse
Yeah.
was quite taken with Larry Joseph and the so-called science that he was claiming proves that 2012 is likely to be a very scary time for the planet.
Yes, yeah, I don't believe that. For me, I didn't.
Right.
And as I said, they didn't show my David Icke stuff as much.
I
It was
know,
in there,
yeah.
but it was a small clip. But, I spent, I think it was about 2-3 hours with Icke on this particular subject. And he, because David Icke says some out there things where you're like, you've got to be kidding me. But on this one, I felt he gave quite an interesting take on it. I'm with the sort of Greg Brayton school of thought. I think it could be a good thing. I don't think.
Well, I tend to agree with you, and I hope that we're both right, and I hope that that obviously.
And you know what? If we're not, so be it. We'll be gone anyway, won't
Right.
we?
Yes, exactly. I get interviewed from time to time about 2012, and people sort of ask me, "Where are you going to be on December 21, 2012?" And the truth of the matter is, I haven't made any special plans yet, but I usually make up something interesting for the purpose of the interview. Like, I'll be at the top of a pyramid in Tikal or something like that. But what I wanted to ask
I'll
you
be with
about...
a plate of jollof rice in Accra.
Yeah, well, that would be good too. Now, what I wanted to ask you about actually was working with Jesse. Now, how much of this stuff does he believe? Is he a true believer? What did you sense on that?
You see, Jesse actually isn't necessarily a believer in the sort of modern conspiracy theories. So when he collected the show, he actually wanted to investigate the JFK murder and get to the bottom of that and interview Lee Harvey Oswald's widow. And as the sort of show was developed further in terms of the audience, the network felt it would be better to focus on much more modern conspiracy theories. And then, as and when the next series happens, then we can sort of open it up a bit more. But where Jesse's concerned, he's much more kind of stuff from the sort of 50s, 60s, and the early 70s, because, that's, in the 70s and 60s and 70s is when he was a Navy SEAL. So he was sort of suspicious about government activity of those days. So, yeah, that is where his interests lie. I mean, you ask him anything about JFK, he can tell you every single detail. And he definitely believes there was some sort of cover-up, some sort of conspiracy.
Right. Yeah. No, I think that probably is a generational thing, because his generation, the big conspiracy was JFK, and I think for our generation, it's 9/11.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now,
Definitely 9/11.
Now, when you research 9/11, obviously it's such a hot issue, and people get so upset about 9/11 in one direction or another. Was that a particularly hard episode for you to research?
It really was. It was a very hard episode to research, because obviously we interviewed family members of the dead, so that was tough. And I think what was actually quite sad about it was so many of them felt that they hadn't received answers, satisfactory answers anyway. Stuff that they could believe. So they really were looking for a champion, and for them, that champion was Jesse. I think where 9/11 is concerned, whatever, for sure, it wasn't investigated properly. The 9/11 Commission report was not well funded. They were only given such a short space of time to actually investigate it. And you just think, a lot here, however you look at it, there was a lot of sort of ineptness. And that could have been because of the severity of the situation, and because, we had never been attacked on sort of, American shores, and maybe they weren't quite sure how to actually deal with it. But it was very badly handled in terms of investigating what happened.
Right. Now, I've met with Willie Rodriguez. He sat in the office with me that I'm sitting in today as I speak to you. And he comes across to me as being someone who's absolutely straight, and he's telling the story exactly as it happened, as he saw it and heard it. Now, did you feel that way when you interviewed him and other people who were actually there on site at the time?
Yeah, well, for me, I just thought, well, why would they lie? They'd have no reason to lie. They're not gaining anything out of this. Do you see what I mean? So for me, that was where I sort of came from. I just thought those people had no reason to lie at all. You know, Willie Rodriguez's life has been destroyed because of his testimony. You know, he's now on a no-fly list and so on and so on. It wasn't a good thing for him to say the things that he said, and you know, his testimony was completely ignored.
No, I completely agree. I think that Willie's a lovely guy, and I think that, you know, clearly it's been an awful thing for him, not at all something that he stands to gain from.
No.
So moving ahead, I would like to ask you, I guess, as a last question, what would you like to see investigated that hasn't been on the show yet? Have you come across any conspiracies as you've been maybe doing research for potential shows of things that...
Yeah, yes. When we did the population control show, we sort of looked at it more from the sort of pharmaceutical industry. I really would like to do a show where we look more into the food, because as I was investigating that one, we sort of uncovered a lot with the food. And I really think if people knew what they're consuming and what it's doing to their bodies, it would really make people consider what they eat. And I think that would be a really powerful episode if we actually focused, had an hour dedicated to what, you know, the food industry is allowing on our shelves. It's terrible.
I completely agree, and there are a number of documentary films. The Future of Food is one that comes to mind that deal with this, but they're not on TV for the most part. But the future of food is kind of preaching, and I love it, don't get me wrong, but I think it's kind of preaching to the converted. You know, the people who are going to see the future of food probably eat quite well anyway. Do you know what I mean? And I think what's great about our show is because it hits a much more mass audience, you know, I think we can use our show to entertain but actually inform on stuff that sort of helps people too. I would love to do an episode on that, because when I was reading those labels, I was like, are you kidding me? And it's in everything. It's so hard. You know, I was like, wow, you know, anything that says natural flavorings, be very scared of it. Well, that's exactly right. Now, that was, what was the name of that book by Eric Schlosser that was all about that, the natural flavorings? He goes to the plant in New Jersey. You know the one I'm talking about?
No.
Oh, it will come to mind in a moment. Anyway, he wrote a classic book, Fast Food Nation.
Oh, Fast Food Nation, of course. Yeah.
I really recommend that you read that if you haven't
already. No, I've read it.
Very scary stuff indeed. Well, I really agree with you that Jesse's show and your show do serve a purpose of getting across information that, although it may be presented in an entertainment format, actually does alert people to issues, and they can go on and research them from there. So I actually do agree with you that it serves a really good purpose, whether or not you like the presentation style.
And you know what's hilarious? What do you think of the presentation style? We actually get to get your opinion on that.
Oh, well, I think that it is tabloid TV, to be honest with you, but I think that that's okay, because the people who want to know more, or the people who perhaps already know more, are not the people the show is made for. The show is made for people who are not being reached otherwise in terms of getting alternative views and news.
Yeah, 100%. 100%, exactly. And I do think that in terms of tone, when something is quite hard-hitting, like a 9/11, the tone of the 9/11 episode is very different to the tone of the 2012 episode, let's say. You know, with 2012, people kind of want a bit of apocalypse now, don't they? So that was very, very hammed up. Whereas 9/11, I think, had a sort of a gentler tone, which was necessary for that episode.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Well, I've been enjoying what you've been doing and what Jesse's been doing. Are you going to do another season? Is it going to continue?
I think we are, and we're just waiting for confirmation. But the show did very well, and you know, it was the highest-rated debut in true history. I mean, Court TV started 25 years ago or whatever, and this was the highest debut they've ever had. So I think we definitely are. And so there's loads of other conspiracies for us to investigate. I've had so much fun filming the show. It's been just hilarious, but also eye-opening. I mean, and scary too. Put it this way, I'm very nice to my family now. I don't know how long we're all going to be here.
Yeah, you're probably on the no-fly list by now. We all are, all us conspiracy theorists, right? So.
Yeah, it's true.
All right.
Well, I haven't been stopped yet, so maybe I haven't made it yet. Series 2, I'll make it, I'm sure.
All right, great. Well, listen, June, good luck with that, and thank you very much.